most important day in the history of the Milwaukee Bucks franchise isn't even officially on the NBA schedule. It might be November 20th, it might be December 1st, but whenever the first day of free agency arrives, the Bucks will officially offer Giannis a 5-year supermax contract that will kick in after the 2021 season concludes. And on that day, Giannis is certainly going to say no. This no doesn't have to mean anything. It doesn't have to mean he's skipping town for Miami, South Beach. There's common financial sense to it. Kevin Durant proved that not even a serious injury will prevent him from getting the max. Giannis has nothing to lose by waiting. In fact, signing now locks him into a wildly uncertain number. We don't even know what the 2021 cap will be, much less the 2021-22 number that his max will be based on. Waiting out the pandemic might mean tens of millions of extra dollars for him. Signing now removes that upside. It also removes his leverage over the roster. Now, Giannis is definitely not LeBron James, right? There's no evidence suggesting that he will use his impending free agency to push for certain roster decisions, but he doesn't need to. The Bucks know that anything short of a finals appearance or even a championship leaves the door open for his departure. A year-long recruiting pitch starts the moment Giannis says no. Every move the Bucks make from that point forward will be based on getting a yes next offseason. In this video, we will just be previewing what moves the Bucks can make to keep his talents and make a run for that championship. Just get right into it. Last season, the Bucks traded Malcolm Brogdon to the Indiana Pacers. There was no reasonable basketball motivation for doing so. There's been some rumblings and grumblings about Brogdon's medical status, but no specific injury he has suffered in the NBA tends to be reoccurring. He hasn't torn an ACL. This trade was 100% financial. The Bucks, having just paid Eric Bledsoe and owning new contracts to Chris Middleton, Brook Lopez, and George Hill, decided that Brogdon was the odd man out. His salary was the difference between the Bucks avoiding the luxury tax and paying it. The thought of doing so off-season was apparently impossible. That has been the organization's stance historically though. It hasn't paid the tax once since the new rules were put in place in 2011. So Brogdon was offloaded, and look what happened. Milwaukee's late game offense stood no chance against a prepared Heat defense. When Brogdon was there, he led the Pacers in clutch scoring. His pick and roll mastery was exactly what the Bucks lacked. That's not the sort of thing Antetokounmpo is going to forget. Now their cap situation is pretty tough. They are still on the brink of paying the luxury tax anyways. They're paying Chris Middleton $33 million. Giannis right now is making $27 million. That's soon going to be upped. But the problem lies with Eric Bledsoe making $16 million, almost $17 million. It's clear that this Milwaukee squad needs some additions, but because of their cap situation, they are between a rock and a hard place. If they were to make an addition, what would that look like? In all likelihood, it will be a perimeter scorer, more specifically a shot creator. But there's another option to consider as well. Miami explodes a pretty glaring weakness in Milwaukee's roster design. The Bucks can take a lot of three-pointers, but they don't actually make any of them. They ranked 4th in three-point attempt rate last season, but 17th in percentage. The Heat comfortably built a wall at the rim against Giannis because they didn't trust Milwaukee's shooters to punch for it, and they were right. Now, there are plenty of free agents on this market who can help solve that issue. Signing someone like Bogdan Bogdanovic would add an above-average shooter, ball handler, and an average defender. He also carries a major benefit that he's only 28. It's not that young, but it's younger than Middleton, Hill, Bledsoe, and both Lopez twins. Milwaukee's goal is definitely to win now, but proving to Giannis that his window isn't closing after the season matters as well. The age though will make him the most expensive option on the table. He's also a restricted free agent, meaning he can't leave the Kings without their approval. If this were to be a move, it would have to be a sign and trade. It would almost certainly mean a commitment from the Kings to make Buddy Hield their long-term shooting guard. If this were a deal to go through, I can very well see the Kings demanding Dante DiVincenzo, sorry for the mispronunciation, as a replacement sixth man. Next free agent the Bucks can go after is Goran Dragic. 6 years older than Bogdanovic at 34 years old, and he just missed most of the NBA Finals due to injury. His window for another big contract is closing. Miami's planned pursuit of Giannis will prevent it from making a multi-year deal with Goran. And the thing with this situation is Miami's also going after the coveted prize in Giannis. So they will shy away from giving expensive multi-year contracts even to their veterans who contributed so much to their finals run. They would at most offer him 1 year, but Goran would probably rather have 4 years of security at over $40 million total, around $10 million per year. The Bucks have an actual shot here, and as far as free agent shot creators go, it doesn't get much better than the version of Dragic we saw in the postseason. Given his age though, it's worth wondering if that player is the one Milwaukee will be signing. Last free agent I can see them going after, besides Bertans and maybe Harris, is Daniel Gallinari. And he comes up in almost every free agent offseason video because he's a guy who can fit anywhere and has already indicated to the public that he'd leave money on the table to join a winner. Newsflash, the Bucks are a winner, and they would love to add one of the NBA's best shooters. The mid-level exception probably won't be enough. It might, but probably won't. But even if it isn't, the Thunders appear more than willing to cooperate in a sign and trade. The challenge Milwaukee would face in using the light taxpayer mid-level exception is how poorly this free agent class is geared to their needs. Teams looking for centers will have endless abundance and options in the taxpayer mid-level area. The Bucks don't need one. They need a point guard. The best in this class after Dragic is DJ Augustine, who does little for them that Bledsoe already doesn't do better. There are great shooters in this class, but mostly of the flawed variety that doesn't have much use to Milwaukee in a playoff setting. Brian Forbes isn't closing out Eastern Conference Finals games against the Celtics or even the Nets. The Bucks will be able to find a good supporting player with the mid-level exception. The player just wouldn't solve their fundamental issues. If that's the route they take, they have to address the bigger problems through trade, and to do that they have to make a decision about their draft capital. In terms of trading their long-term picks, such as their 2026 pick or 2027 pick, it's going to be tough. On paper, those could be quite valuable, but it depends largely on Giannis himself. If Giannis remains in Milwaukee, one would presume that there'll likely be later picks. If he leaves, those picks could be at the top of the lottery. Any blockbuster trade would almost certainly include Eric Bledsoe as most of the salary filler. Trading would be the same for them as they are in free agency: ball handling and shooting. 4 immediate big name targets come to mind. First is Chris Paul. Chris Paul trade is unlikely due in large part to the cost-risk ratio. It's unfortunate because no single player better fits what the Bucks need than Paul. He fills both the shooting and ball handling gaps without taking much off the table defensively. His aging body would enjoy Mark Budenholzer's preference for limiting the minutes of his stars. The option of absorbing the final year on Paul's deal without Giannis isn't exactly ideal, but it's necessary. Bucks should trade for Chris Paul. They may never have another chance to acquire an all-NBA type player on the board. It just doesn't look like they're willing to do so. This trade, I actually think, could be better than a potential Chris Paul trade. Holiday. He's hardly cheap at $26 million, but that's $15 million less than Paul is owed. He's expected to opt out the final year on his deal in the 2021 offseason. That may make him more desirable than Paul, but it also makes him more desirable to every other team. The Bucks can't outbid Brooklyn, Indiana, or Golden State. They might not be able to even outbid Denver. This sort of trade only happens if the Bucks are willing to take a plunge on an unprotected future first-round pick. Even then, a team like the Nets could still offer more. Now, there's also the possibility of a Victor Oladipo trade. But according to reports, a deal like that is probably unlikely, and it's probably for the best. Y'all know how I feel about Oladipo. He only has one All-NBA season under his belt, didn't come remotely close to that level after returning from injury last season. He definitely might be a star again someday, and he definitely has the work ethic to get to that level, but he's not the sort of player Milwaukee should bet Antetokounmpo's future on. All in all, the Bucks have a lot on their plate this offseason. They have one offseason to rectify their past mistakes, one offseason to make a deep run in the postseason to reassure Giannis that he can win in that city. Players like Giannis do not come around often. If you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing. One thing that is not negotiable though is put something down in the comments, especially if you made it all the way to the end. Yeah, definitely, I know you have some thoughts. Put something down in the comments. I love to chat it up. I'm not even a Bucks fan, right? I'm a Rockets fan, so you guys may know the situations a little more intimately than I do. Either way, thanks for watching. Until next time, stay safe.